Mark Zanetto, Locked on UConn, to wrap up this conversation about these two parties, the Big 12 and University of Connecticut. Who needs this more? Who is this more important to if this move goes through?
I think it's more important to UConn in the long term. And I think the short term, I think it benefits the Big 12 in the short term because clearly they don't have to pay UConn any revenue share on the football side. Remember,
Bingo.
budget neutral. So it's clearly a long-term play for UConn that they need this more. Short term, the Big 12 needs it more because your Mark is interested in having the basketball super conference. And when you add the best program in college basketball, that happens overnight. And you add the greatest women's basketball program of all time. So, and I can say that unequivocally because they've won 11 titles, and I don't think anyone's close to even double digits. So, it's one of those things where that's cut and dry. Long term, it's great for UConn. Short term, it's fantastic for the Big 12.
In the next 10 years, I think this matters, and Big 12 fans will probably disagree. That fan in Wichita Falls, Texas, who grew up rooting for TCU might disagree. This is better for the Big 12 because of the conversation it's opening up with Fox and because of the conversation it's opening up with ESPN. It's no longer a, hey, what could we do? What can the Big 12 do with these 16 schools? Now it's, what more can you give us? If we have decided to add UConn or Gonzaga, Washington State, NC State, Miami, Louisville, what more can we do as a conference to expand further, not just in football, but in basketball as well, to build more revenue? And those TV contracts have longevity. Those are 10-year contracts, 10-plus year contracts when they're signed. If the Big 12 wants to negotiate that, having a piece like UConn and knowing that Fox and ESPN are in the war room as those conversations are going gives you an instant key to say, hey, we're not just willing to negotiate this next deal on 16 teams. We're willing to do it with expansion products as well. And maybe to change the question just a bit, Mark, I want to see if it varies your answer. Who would this, if it falls through, is it, I don't know if it's catastrophic for either, but who walks away more sad?
I think UConn administrators walk away more sad, and it's slightly more sad than maybe Brett Yormark,
who seems very excited by this, by the way.
I mean, of course, I think because he wants it, and if Brett's watching, I appreciate you, man. Bring us home. I'm excited. I would be excited for it because I truly believe that UConn is making the investments to make football great, and I do feel like obviously our basketball program is the best in the country, with bar none. So. You add, I think that's just the bottom line is that it would be kind of like a 60-40 split on sadness. If you know what I mean.
I wouldn't be happy. I think this is a move that benefits the Big 12 ultimately, benefits both, but benefits the Big 12 ultimately enough that the university presidents should make it. And if you don't get UConn, now you're lacking because you don't have to pay for football yet.
Yeah,
you don't have to.
Let me ask you this question, Drake, because there's a lot of new teams in the Big 12, but and people are going to think I'm just saying this just to kind of make fun of one team. And I'm just going to use it because I've said on my show that I think a UConn Kansas conference home at home, if they did that, or they played once a year, it would be the best college basketball game of the year. And then you have the Dan Hurley versus Bobby Hurley, Arizona State UConn game. That could be prime time Fox. They could play it up. They could have a college game day there. I mean, there's the possibilities are endless in basketball. But who does the Big 12 like Kansas fans whose football program is not that great? I know they make money. Think they are saying that UConn would be 1-11 in the Big 12 perennially. I mean, I'm just saying it's the pot calling the kettle black. There were some bad football in the Big 12 for years. And it's gotten a lot better thanks to Brett Yormark and his ability to bring quality teams in. So if he thinks UConn can get to that level of at least being competitive with these Big 12 schools, you got to trust him and go with it. That's all I have to say.
The last 2 decades, we haven't seen schools like Kansas or Texas Tech be at the pinnacle. Kansas has one, BCS bowl appearance, but I look at Iowa State, kind of the same thing. You say, hey, you've never won double-digit games. There are programs here that just haven't done it at the highest level. So to say that UConn can't would be buffoonery, to put it nicely, for those schools. And what I would say to those people is, Mark, which university in the country has won a combined 16 national championships since 1999?
Oh, you can see some of the banners on my wall behind me. So that would be UConn.
Yeah. And which school has had 3 men's head coaches take them to national championships in that span and win those championships? Also, UConn, 5 men's championships. So I made this point on my show. This would be silly and stupid if it was, hey, Oakland made a great run at the tournament last year. Sure. What if, we could trust them to, or even some of these mid tiers. Oh, Wichita State was good for a decade. What if they come in? No, we're talking about a school that amongst multiple head coaches is winning national championships because they have that kind of investment in college basketball and because they have that kind of culture for the last 25 years. To me, that kind of staying power is something the Big 12 can hang its hat on and bring in without football really mattering right now. Because again, till 2031, it's a completely moot point.
Yeah, I agree. And I'd be remiss. And I've if I didn't correct you on one thing, we have 17 total championships with 6 with the men and 11 with the women in basketball. No, I mean, it's crazy. It's because this banner went obsolete last year. I had to bring it off the yard and I put a new one up. So, it's one of those things where you're right. There's a commitment to excellence at UConn. It also would be, I mean, I know we're not talking about academics, but at UConn's academics would easily be in the top 2, 1, maybe the. Yeah,
Mark, we don't need to talk education here. You're going to be A-okay in that conversation in the Big 12 conference. Mark, before we get out of here, where can folks find more of your work, including that show with Ross Dellinger?
Yeah, no, check out Locked On UConn on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. I will also tweet it out at Mark Zanetto CBB and then also at Locked On UConn on X, formerly Twitter.
Pleasure as always. This has been a crossover with Locked On Big 12 and Locked On UConn. This has been and always will be Locked On. Thanks for making it your first listen every single day. UConn and Dose Grande.